The Zenari Council cowered behind their crystalline podiums, quivering in fear, as the humans stepped forward to face the right of valor. Nathan Porter stood tall, unwavering, ready to conquer the challenges designed to break even the toughest Zenari warriors. "You don't understand. No outsider has ever survived the rite. Your human body can't handle the trials," Craxon stammered, his compound eyes wide with genuine concern. Nathan turned to the insectoid alien, his gaze steely. "Watch me." Just minutes before, Nathan had arrived on Zephyrus 6, the Zenari homeworld, stepping out of the sleek SS Prometheus onto the planet's rocky surface. Craxon had greeted him, all 7 feet of his iridescent green exoskeleton glinting under the twin suns. The Zenari led Nathan to the Grand Council chamber, an immense crystalline dome that sparkled like 1,000 diamonds. Inside, the Zenari High Council waited, 12 ancient beings draped in flowing robes, their weathered faces etched with apprehension. "The trade negotiations cannot begin until you prove your worth, human," the eldest counselor rasped, his voice like dry leaves. "The rite of valor is a sacred tradition, a series of challenges that will test your courage and resolve. Do you accept?" Nathan didn't hesitate. Earth needed this alliance, and he would do whatever it took to secure it. "I accept." Now, as he stared down the first challenge, a labyrinth filled with vicious, acid-spitting serpents, Nathan knew failure was not an option. If he died here, Earth would lose its only chance at survival. The Zenari would withdraw their offer of aid, leaving humanity to face the Zorgan invasion alone. Nathan gritted his teeth and stepped into the maze, ready to face whatever horrors lay ahead. He would not cower like the Zenari. He was human, and he would show them what that meant. Craxon led Nathan down a winding corridor, the walls pulsing with an eerie bioluminescent glow. They stopped before a massive archway, tendrils of thick black fog spilling out from the darkness beyond. "This is the Chamber of Echoes," Craxon said, his mandibles twitching nervously. "You must navigate through the fog and reach the exit on the other side. But be careful. There are deadly creatures lurking in the mist, ready to strike at any moment." Nathan nodded, steeling himself for the challenge ahead. He stepped through the archway, the fog immediately enveloping him in a cold, clammy embrace. The silence was deafening, broken only by the sound of his own breathing and the pounding of his heart. Suddenly, a series of high-pitched shrieks pierced the air, coming from all directions at once. Nathan whirled around, trying to pinpoint the source of the noise, but the fog made it impossible to see more than a few feet in front of him. The sound of skittering claws on stone echoed through the chamber, growing louder with each passing second. Nathan dropped into a defensive crouch, his military training kicking in. He moved forward slowly, using his enhanced hearing to detect the movement of the unseen creatures. A dark shape lunged at him from the mist, razor-sharp claws slicing through the air. Nathan dodged to the side, feeling the brush of the creature's talons against his skin. He rolled and came up in a fighting stance, ready for the next attack. More creatures emerged from the fog, their glowing eyes and dripping fangs visible in the dim light. Nathan fought them off, using every ounce of his strength and agility to avoid their deadly strikes. As he neared the exit, a massive serpentine creature rose up before him, its scales glistening with venomous slime. Nathan knew he had only one chance. With a burst of speed, he leapt into the air, soaring over the creature's head and tumbling through the archway on the other side. He landed in a crouch, panting heavily. Craxon and the other Zenari observers stared at him in astonishment, their compound eyes wide with disbelief. Nathan had done the impossible. He had survived the Chamber of Echoes. As Nathan emerged from the Chamber of Echoes, Craxon scuttled up to him, his mandibles clicking with excitement. "Incredible! You've passed the first challenge, but there's no time to rest. The next trial awaits." The insectoid alien led Nathan through a winding tunnel, the walls adorned with intricate carvings, depicting ancient Zenari battles. They emerged into a massive, circular arena, its towering walls made of smooth, black stone that seemed to absorb the light. In the center of the arena of the fallen stood a lone figure, an imposing Zanari warrior known as Zaxxon. Zaxxon was a behemoth, standing 8 feet tall with a heavily armored exoskeleton that gleamed a deep iridescent blue. In each of his 4 hands, he wielded a curved, razor-sharp blade that looked capable of slicing through steel. The reigning champion of the Rite of Valor, Zaxxon was a formidable opponent, and the objective of the challenge was simple. Nathan had to defeat him in single combat. As Nathan stepped into the arena, a Zanari attendant approached him, holding out 2 weapons for him to choose from. One was a Zanari energy lance, a long spear-like weapon that emitted a crackling beam of blue energy. The other was a human-made kinetic shield and plasma sword, smuggled onto Zephyrus 6 by Nathan's allies back on Earth. Without hesitation, Nathan reached for the familiar human weapons, the weight of the shield and sword comforting in his hands. The Zanari spectators buzzed with confusion, their compound eyes fixed on the strange alien technology. Zaxxon charged at Nathan with blinding speed, his blades a whirlwind of death. Nathan activated his kinetic shield, the translucent blue barrier springing to life just in time to deflect the first onslaught of blows. The force of the impact sent shockwaves through Nathan's arms, but he held his ground, parrying and dodging with precise, calculated movements. The battle raged on, Zaxxon's relentless attacks pushing Nathan to the limits of his human physiology. Sweat poured down his face, his muscles screaming with exertion as he fought to keep up with the Zanari champion's inhuman speed and strength. As fatigue began to set in, Nathan knew he had to act fast. In a desperate gambit, he deactivated his shield and lunged forward, his plasma sword flashing in a brilliant arc of white-hot energy. The blade sliced through Zaxxon's armor like a hot knife through butter, severing his left arm at the shoulder. The Zanari warrior let out a howl of pain and disbelief, his remaining blades clattering to the ground as he fell to his knees, iridescent blood pooling around him. The once jeering crowd fell silent, their compound eyes wide with shock and awe at the sight of the human's incredible feat. Nathan stood before the Zanari High Council, his chest heaving, his body aching from the trials he had endured. The council members stared at him, their compound eyes reflecting a mix of awe and apprehension. "Human," the eldest councillor said, his voice a rasping whisper, "you have proven yourself in the Chamber of Echoes and the Arena of the Fallen, but there is one final challenge you must face before you can be deemed worthy of negotiating with the Zanari." Nathan nodded, his jaw set. "I'm ready." Craxon led him through a series of winding corridors, deeper into the heart of the council's headquarters. They stopped before a small, nondescript door, its surface etched with intricate symbols. "This is the Chamber of the Mind," Craxon said, his mandibles twitching nervously. "Inside you will face the trial of the mind, a test of mental fortitude that has driven many Zanari mad." Nathan stepped into the chamber, the door sliding shut behind him with a soft hiss. The room was dimly lit, the air heavy with the scent of incense. In the center of the room stood a pedestal, upon which rested a strange, pulsating orb. Craxon's voice crackled over a hidden speaker. "The orb is a powerful psychic amplifier, used by the Zanari to test the mental strength of our leaders. You must place your hand on the orb and withstand the onslaught of psychic energy that will invade your mind." Nathan approached the pedestal, his heart pounding in his chest. He reached out, his fingers hovering over the orb's surface. "Be warned," Craxon said, his voice tinged with fear. "The orb will force you to confront your deepest fears and darkest secrets. Many have been driven mad by the experience." Nathan took a deep breath, steeling himself for what was to come. He placed his hand on the orb, and the world exploded in a kaleidoscope of color and sound. Images flashed through his mind, memories long buried rising to the surface. He saw his childhood on Earth, the faces of his parents, his siblings. He felt the heat of the sun on his skin, the taste of his mother's cooking on his tongue. Then the memories shifted, turning darker. He saw his time in the military, the battles he had fought, the lives he had taken. He felt the weight of his failures, the guilt of those he couldn't save. The orb probed deeper, tearing through the layers of his psyche. exposing his deepest fears and insecurities. He saw the faces of those he had lost, heard their screams echoing in his mind. But through it all, Nathan remained focused on his mission, his duty to his people. He gritted his teeth, pushing back against the psychic onslaught, his mind a fortress of iron will. With a final, triumphant roar, Nathan wrenched his hand away from the orb, his chest heaving, his mind intact. He stood there, panting, as the chamber slowly came back into focus. The door slid open and Craxon rushed in, his compound eyes wide with disbelief. "Incredible," he breathed. "No one has ever withstood the trial of the mind with such strength." Nathan smiled, a thin, weary smile. "I told you, Craxon, I'm not like the others." They returned to the council chamber, where the Zenari leaders waited, their faces etched with anticipation. The eldest councillor stepped forward, his robes rustling softly. "Human," he said, his voice filled with reverence, "you have passed the final trial. You have proven yourself worthy of negotiating on behalf of your people." As Nathan and Craxon stepped into the negotiation chambers, a thunderous explosion shook the building to its core. Alarms blared, their shrill cries piercing the air as Zenari guards scrambled to secure the perimeter. Craxon's compound eyes widened, his mandibles twitching in fear. "A radical Zenari faction opposed to the alliance with humans," he stammered. "They've launched an attack on the council." Without hesitation, Nathan grabbed an energy lance from a fallen guard and sprinted towards the source of the explosion, his heart pounding in his chest. As he neared the blast site, he found a group of heavily armed Zenari insurgents locked in a fierce battle with the council's security forces. At the head of the insurgents stood Zorgax, a massive, scarred warrior with eyes that burned with hatred. Nathan leapt into the fray, the energy lance crackling with deadly power in his hands. He fought alongside the Zenari guards, his human agility and strength a match for the insurgents' superior numbers. Together, they pushed back against the attackers, the air thick with the stench of burnt flesh and ozone. Just as the tide seemed to turn in their favor, Zorgax hurled a pulsating green orb towards the council chambers. Time seemed to slow as Nathan watched the orb arc through the air, his mind racing as he recognized the telltale signs of a psionic grenade. Without a second thought, he lunged forward, throwing himself on top of the grenade just as it detonated. The explosion ripped through his body, the force of the blast shattering his bones and rupturing his organs. Searing pain engulfed him as he crashed to the ground, his vision blurring at the edges. Craxon and the other council members rushed to his side, their faces etched with shock and sorrow as they gathered around his broken form. Nathan coughed, blood bubbling from his lips as he struggled to draw breath. "Protect them," he rasped, his voice barely more than a whisper. "Protect my people." As the light faded from his eyes, the Zenari bowed their heads in reverence, their hearts heavy with the weight of Nathan's sacrifice. They vowed to honor the alliance he had fought so hard to forge, to ensure that his death would not be in vain. In the days that followed, the Zenari erected a statue in Nathan's honor, a towering figure of a human standing tall among their kind, a symbol of the unbreakable bond between their species. The negotiations continued, but without Nathan's guidance, the alliance was strained and uneasy, the scars of the attack still fresh in the minds of both races. Years later, Craxon, now an elder statesman, stood before Nathan's statue, his iridescent carapace gleaming in the soft light. A single tear rolled down his weathered face as he remembered the human who had given everything to bridge the gap between their worlds. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.